Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. I know I recently did a Q&A video, and a lot of people had asked the question on advice for people getting into Podfics. And I realized that while I talked about it during that Q&A, there's still so much that can be said as far as advice goes. So I wanted to take time to give some of my personal recommendations for things. For this video in particular, I'm going to be talking primarily about author specifications when giving permissions. So things that authors may make as requests for you to do as far as doing podfics, respecting authors and authors' wishes, and what that extends to, and what you should take into consideration, because I didn't know any of it when I started. And I don't want to see a bunch of people going out and starting podfics and not knowing what to do when there's a possibility here to educate on what I do, at least from my perspective. And there's probably tons I still don't know, but I'm at least going to give the best advice that I can as far as what I do to show respect. Because I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of really amazing authors who helped to educate me on things since I started. I've made tons of mistakes. I've, learned through trial and error. That's what all this is. But I don't want to see people unnecessarily stumble through things if they don't have to. And so, to better make a nice cohesiveness for the podfic community when it comes to us with authors, if you're fortunate enough to be a really strong author and you're planning to just do your own fics, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're somebody that plans to podfic and you're going to use fics that you didn't write, you need to understand the importance of respect when it comes to working with authors, because it's a partnership. You wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for them. So today I'm going to be talking about what I see as great ways to show respect when it comes to authors and getting their permissions. So let's just jump right into it. So when you're making requests for permissions, it can go a bunch of different ways. For instance, you may put a request out for doing a podfic for somebody's fic, and you may get a response back with an immediate no. That happens. Sometimes authors aren't comfortable, and that's okay. That's their prerogative. If it's a no, it's a no. You may never hear back. And in that case, it's a no. Until you know it's a no. Trust me. And if you don't hear back for a while, it may just be because the author's busy. They haven't had a chance to look yet. You'd be surprised how many floods of comments they'll get on a day-to-day basis, or it may be a fic that they had written forever ago, and they may not be active on the platform that you're reaching out on anymore. So it may take time before they check back in and see it. I've had instances where I've asked for permissions, and it's taken months until I heard back. And then when I did, it was the greatest feeling in the world, because you're like, oh, I put that out of my mind. I thought I would never get to podfic it, and now you can. So that's a really great feeling. So hold out, if that's the case. But yeah, you could get a blatant no. You could get no response. You could get a yes. What my most common response is when somebody comes back with approval is, yes, absolutely. That's so exciting. Have fun. Just straight up permission. Just have at it. You're free to do whatever. Have a good time. That's probably 90% of the time, that's the response that's given, because authors are typically pretty excited about it. The other thing that could occur outside of blanket permissions, which does happen, you may stumble across an author's profile, things like that. There's a couple instances on my channel where I've seen blanket permissions and gone about it that way. Feeling Stabby, the author of Hero's Shadow, and As Small as an Elephant, two fics that are queued up to be done on here, they have blanket permission listed in their profile. So that's a good example of blanket podficking permissions. Another way you may come across blanket permission is maybe upon your request to do a podfic, an author may come back and say, yes, that's totally fine. You can actually podfic any of my fics. You have blanket permission to do so. That's happened to me a couple of times. And so I may go back and do some of those authors' other fics. So that, that's another instance. And the other option that may occur is you may get a yes, but it may be a yes that comes with conditions. So I wanted to talk about, what those conditions might be, what they might look like, what types of requests authors might make, and what I do to kind of account for a lot of those requests myself on the front end, in case authors come back later on, because they have every right to come back later on and say, hey, I'd actually like to see you do this. Could you make this adjustment, or things like that? And so to prevent yourself from having to make changes down the line, the more you can account for on the front end, the more crediting and things you can do to, things that most authors would prefer, the better. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So the most common things that I'll see for requests from authors when they give permission is, like, for instance, I'll talk in reference to AO3, but you can look at it from any platform perspective. I'll get, requests like, if you're gonna have the podfic off of AO3, I'd love you to link it back to the original fic in some way. So whether that be a link in the description of your video, a lot of authors have made requests for works inspired by on AO3. So if you're on Archive of Our Own, there's a way to create a fic and then make it as a fic that's inspired by. So if you ever take a look at my AO3, you can see some of the podfics that I've done on there, and it links it directly back to the original fic. And you can also include a link to outsource it to wherever you're podficking at, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, whatever. It's a great way to show crediting to that author, to show it's a direct thing, and it shows up at the bottom of that author's fic too when they approve it, so it's pretty cool. So that's really common to ask for proper crediting in any capacity. I've also had authors say, I'd like to see my name in the background of the fic or the podfic itself, which you'd be surprised, a lot of people at Podfic may not do that. So they want to see maybe other ways that you can show that they're the author, that you can show proper crediting. So what I do personally to kind of account for some of these things I've seen as requests is I have the name of the author who wrote the fic in the background of the video I do itself. They're also listed in the description, and a link to the original fic is in the description. And then I also now create an AO3 works inspired by, because all the stuff that I've read so far is on there. But AO3 also gives you the option to create a work inspired by and link it to things not on AO3. So maybe you read something on Wattpad and you want to do it that way as well. So just things to consider. Those are the ways that I credit. I think it's a wonderful way to do it personally. I like showing as much credit as possible to authors, and I just want to make sure that they understand there's respect there, that there's no way I'm trying to claim work as my own. And I think that's really important, because if it's not for them and the work that they put into their fics, we don't have an opportunity to podfic it. So just always remember that. So those are some of the more common things that you'll see. Those types of, requests for proper crediting is probably the biggest one. Another thing I've seen is for it not to leave AO3. If that's the case, if you're not somebody who plans to create podfics and solely embed them into AO3 as fics, then that's a no. If an author has that as a request and they don't want it to be off of AO3 at all for podfics even, because a lot of times authors say, I don't want this cross-posted to other sites like Wattpad and things like that. That's one thing. But usually when it comes to podfics, if they give you permission, usually it's for wherever, unless they specify. So that happens sometimes though. And if so, it's a no. Some of the things I've seen are pretty common, but that's not as common for them to say that, at least from what I've seen so far. It may be more common for others, but for me, that's not super common. Another thing that's not super common is, I've also seen it where authors will say, like, if you're on YouTube, they may not want ads on their podfic, and that's fine. Authors will say that too. So you'll notice on the channel, I have a couple that have requested that, and there's a few on here that just have none at all, because that's been a request that an author's made. There's a few fics down the line I've got set up like that as well, where authors have said that. So if you're somebody that has the capabilities of monetizing a channel because you've got such a following, if an author makes that request that they don't want to see ads on their video, you need to make sure that you're honoring that. And that's important too. It's not super common. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but it does happen on occasion. So it's just something else to consider. So I like to talk about the less common ones, because in any of these instances, because even if you get that initial yes, yeah, sure, that'd be great, but I need you to do this, this, and this. And if you don't do this, this, and this, it's a no. So just taking that into consideration, because it's got to be a dual relationship with authors. And, I don't want people starting out in this making a ton of mistakes if they don't have to. I don't want you to have to stumble through things like I did, because when I started, I didn't know how to credit. I didn't know how to make a works inspired by. I knew I had only been on AO3 for like a year, and that was where I actually had an account. Like, I had read stuff on there, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't left kudos or comments or anything. I was just on there for fics. So I didn't really know much about it at all. So when I have the opportunity now to kind of share what I've learned, I want to make sure that we're creating an environment where people that podfic are trying to maintain good relationships with the original fic authors, because that's important. We wouldn't be here without them. I think that covers the majority of what I see on a day-to-day when I'm making requests for podfics. That's Probably the most common stuff: blanket permissions, just no responses, certain types of conditional responses. That's probably what you see the most. But the biggest thing that I see is, yeah, have fun with it. And that's great. But you never know if an author's going to come back and make changes, or they're going to, maybe lose comfortability with the fact that you're doing a podfic of their stuff. And that's okay too. They have the right to change their mind. So, one of the things that I do to try to create more of an environment where authors feel comfortable making a request to have something taken down or changed is I do not specify. I did it one time, but I didn't feel comfortable with it after then when I took down one video or one fic. I just, I announced it once, but after that, I've made it clear that there's a list of reasons why fics may come down on this channel. I will not specify when I take fics down anymore what the reasons are. They could be a majority of reasons. They could be, I didn't like the quality. I am changing certain things that the author requested changes for. It could be I'm doing a re-recording. It could be I just don't feel like it fits with the quality of the channel anymore. I don't feel like it works well. I don't want it cluttering up my channel, maybe. Whatever the reasons are, or an author could have requested it be taken down. Because I don't specify, because I've provided a list of possible reasons, it makes it so that there's a less likelihood of anybody taking that as authors saying, oh, I don't want this up anymore, and then going and seeking out authors and demanding reasonings why. They have every right to no longer want a podfic done. It's just how it is. The last thing I want to ever have happen is for authors to be feeling uncomfortable or uneasy with coming and making specific requests to me at any point in time. I don't want an author to look at this channel and say how many people are on it and how many people are viewing these videos and feel bad about saying, I'm no longer comfortable with this. If they're uncomfortable, I want them to feel like they can approach and not feel like they're going to be attacked for the fact that they've made that request. I don't want to publicize that. I don't want to make it well known if that's the case. And so I'm never going to confirm nor deny if an author has made that request, because that's their right to do so. And I want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. I put in the bio for this channel that authors' wishes are my priority, and I want to maintain that because I wouldn't be able to do this without them. I don't have that many fics. I've started my second fic this week. I don't, I haven't even finished my first one. I don't have enough material on my own to be able to just podfic my own work. I'm reliant on these amazing authors, people who've done incredible fanfics, to be able to do what I do now. And so the least I can do is try to create a little barrier between everything that's going on. If they make that request, I don't want to ever see anybody seeking backlash on authors if they change their mind. That's never what I don't want that to happen. I really don't. And I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I think the people that are in this podfic community are amazing and incredible and so kind. And I haven't seen any hateful comments towards me yet. And that's kind of remarkable for almost 10,000 subscribers at this point, which is crazy to me. I never thought this would happen, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. And I don't want authors to feel like they can't speak up. That's important to me. So that's why. And I know from the bottom of my heart that it frustrates some people when I don't give a reasoning. But I said in that post that I've done, and most people that have searched through the community posts and stuff have seen it, that there's a list of reasons for why it could come down at any point. And I don't want to put authors in a bad spot. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. If you are somebody that, if you put up a fic and then the author comes back and tells you, I don't want it up anymore, and you want to make an announcement so that you can let people know, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. I don't think you're going to break any hearts over it, but it's just something I do that I think that I would recommend, because I think it creates an additional safety net for authors where they feel a little more comfortable coming to you. I don't want to ever feel like, I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable with their work being up on this channel. And that's so important to me. I owe so much to these authors for how much they've taught me over the past few months. I really can't show my appreciation enough. So, and the only other thing that I would say as far as appreciating your authors is encouraging your audience your listeners to go back and show support to those original fics. I always say go leave comments or kudos, because all the fics that I've done so far have been on AO3. And if people don't know what that means, explaining it, if people ask questions, by providing that link in the description, you make an easy way for people to be able to jump into the original fic and leave their support. And that's great because it creates more awareness to who that author is, to their works. They may have done other works that you haven't podfic that you get to share with others too. So it makes this community so much more fun when you get an opportunity to show support all around. So do it. I hope this kind of covers, what to do as far as respecting your authors. There's more to it. There's more ways you can show respect, I'm sure, things that I still have to learn. And as I learn things while I'm going, I'll plan to add on to my advice for what you should do as well. But, some of the biggest things is showing that respect, making sure you honor what the authors are requesting, and just crediting. Credit. Give it your all too. Because if you're having fun with this, it makes it all the more amazing for everybody else involved. When you podfic, at least for me, I can immerse myself into a fic in a way that I never experienced before prior to doing this. When I started with the essay writing competition, simply because I was so upset I couldn't find a podfic of it that day, I didn't know anything that I was doing, but it took that fic to another level for me, a different level from just listening. So if you're interested in doing this, I highly recommend trying it. Even if you end up not liking it, you've given it a shot. But the more people we have doing it, the more fun it is. We've become a community. I can't tell you how cool it is when I hear people say, hey, you inspired me to do podfics. And, I may not have had one specific person that showed me that podfics were the most amazing thing ever, because there's so many good ones out there. I mean, there's so many amazing people that do this already, but to know that now, people are wanting to do this because of more things they're seeing, because it looks fun, that's amazing to me. This community is growing every day. The amount of people that don't even know what podfics are, that don't even know that they have an opportunity to listen to their favorite fanfics, oh, it saddens me, because I was that person. I didn't know until last year. So I'm really thankful for all of you who are asking about this and are willing to start this as well. So thank you. If you have more specific questions, things that you want more detail on as far as the podficking process goes, be sure to ask those. I'd love to do more of these as I come up with ideas of things that I think are important. So it's kind of like flex. I don't have a schedule for this kind of stuff. I'm just, as I see things that are important, or I think of things that I think you should know, I'm just planning to kind of do little videos like this on specific topics. Today's was just about respecting authors. So I think that's a really big one. It's probably the most important one for this stuff. So just taking that into consideration going forward, if this is an avenue you want to pursue. Because like I said, I knew nothing of this, and I owe everything to the amazing people, authors, other podfickers I've had the opportunity to talk to and look off of for references, and just the trial and error process. But, take advantage of the information you can gather before starting a journey like this, because the easier you can make it on yourself, the better. And you don't want to upset authors if you can avoid it, just recognizing the importance of that. I'll end this with just letting you guys know that, yeah, I have started a second fic on AO3. So check out my AO3 if you want to take a look at the 2 fics that I have ongoing now. The first one is the Suspected Traitor AU that I started for Midoriya being suspected as a traitor. It's pretty fun. I like that one. It's 8 chapters in. It's gained pretty good traction, and I should have the next chapter up within a week. The other fic that I've started is a Rody Deku fic. I'm really excited about it. I'm not going to give too much detail on that one, because that one's it's my new baby. I'm really excited. But I haven't done any fanfics prior to these, so any feedback I get on them is much appreciated. With that being said, though, that's all I have for y'all today. And as always, thank you for your amazing support and for listening.